All right. So the first thing that I have here, it's funny. This gentleman has been quite busy. It seems like for the last several months, and I may have even mentioned that last week. Ugur Cook put out another new tool over the last week called the Device Offboarding Manager. This is a GUI based in PowerShell that he's put together that will help you offboard devices from Intune, Autopilot, and Entra ID. It's fantastic to see another one of these tools coming out because this is a question that Johan and I get off fairly often. How do we keep our environments clean? Because when we're dealing with Intune, of course, we're not just dealing with device objects in Intune. We do have device objects in Entra. We do have device objects in Autopilot. Sometimes we even have them in Active Directory if we're doing a hybrid scenario. So we do have to make sure that those things are they take care in feeding. They have to be maintained. They have to be clean. I'm going to share both Ugur's GitHub repository for the device offboarding manager, but he also put together a nice video that goes through the usage of the tool. It is still preview. I think this is actually a V.1. If I saw correctly. So please keep that in mind when you are running the tool. Make sure you test. But the more testing that goes on, usually with these types of tools, the more testing, the better off the project is. So thank you, Ugur, for another community contribution. He has been, as I said, a very busy gentleman recently. Another thing I came across was a fantastic blog post by Ben Whitmore over on the MS Endpoint Manager blog, a deep dive on the Microsoft Graph SDK authentication methods. There are several ways that you can authenticate to Graph. So he sort of goes through some of these, how we can even use Key Vault, how we can use secrets, certificates in order to authenticate in various ways. We're not always going to be authenticating to Graph interactively, in that I'm not necessarily always going to be in a PowerShell or an Azure Shell command prompt accessing Graph through just that method. But oftentimes we'll have scheduled tasks running. We'll have jobs that get triggered by one means or another, whether it's a webhook or an API or something like that. So we have a lot of options, and knowing what those options are and when is the best to use them, as well as use them in a secure manner, is incredibly important. So a fantastic post here. As you can see, going through this post, there are a lot of examples and a lot of explanations for this. I think it was last week we were talking about one of Ben's light deep dives, and typically they are not that. But if there's any information you need about authenticating a Graph, it's likely that you're going to get it out of this post from Ben right here. Also saw that the Nordic Virtual Summit is returning next month, February 7th, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. CET, which would be, probably should have thought about that before I said that out loud. Probably 6 hours ahead of us, Johan, is that correct?
That would be 7 hours.
7 hours, all right. I knew I have my world clock here with me. Thank you, sir. So this will be about 2 a.m. our time, but hopefully we can catch some of this as well. Fantastic event. You've spoken at this before, haven't you?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Perhaps.
Well, it's a great event nonetheless. Fantastic speakers there, as always. A lot of our friends speaking at this event. So if you can make it, please go ahead and register and check that out.
Yeah, historically they have not been recorded, so you kind of have to show up.
Can do one of two things: either drink a whole bunch of coffee the night before and just stay up, or get up early. I don't know.
Yeah.
All right. I did also want to give a little bit of an update on something that we talked about last week. We had a question come in about how we could check the status, the assignment status of a particular profile or policy um, in Intune, but through Graph. So I'm still working on it, and the reason that I'm still working on it is this is one of those things that I've come across where it's not explicitly simple to just grab a commandlet out of the PowerShell Graph SDK. Um, so I've done a little bit of digging. First and foremost, one of the tools that I used, it's a favorite of mine, but Matt mentioned it last week when we were talking about this, is Graph X-Ray. And I wanted to just show you real quick. This is sort of my starting point for figuring out how we can access this information. So Graph X-Ray is a browser extension that we can install, and it becomes available here in our network tools or our developer tools within Edge. And what Graph X-Ray does is grabs the Graph API calls that are being made in the browser tab that we currently have open. So you can see when I head over to the Windows devices, for example, we'll start to see Graph calls that show, give me all of the devices based on a certain filter. So, for example, this is a pretty large filter, but we can see that this is making a call to the device management endpoint, device management managed devices, which then shows us all of the Windows devices and populates the window as we would expect here, the browser tab as we would expect with the Windows devices that are available. So what I was looking into and what the question was related to was if we go to configuration profiles, for example, how do we get access to wait a minute, I'm sorry, I'm going to the wrong place. If I go to a specific device, so let's go to one that's on right now, maybe right here. And if I go to device configuration, how do I get this information right here? The state of these individual configuration profiles. At least this is where I wanted to start, and I also wanted to get application state and compliance state as well. Now with Graph X-Ray, we'll get some of that information right here. So it shows me a PowerShell commandlet. I'm not even going to attempt to say this one out loud here because it is a mouthful, that's for sure, as some of these procedurally generated commandlets are. But this, if I just copy and paste this right here into Visual Studio Code or PowerShell, this isn't going to get me the information that I need right out of the gate. Either because this commandlet doesn't function exactly as X-Ray is telling me right here, or I don't have exact access to this endpoint. So you kind of have to do, my point here, my long-winded point is that you have to do a little bit of reverse engineering. So we can do that by finding using this API endpoint here. We see that we have a post method, so we actually have to post to this API to get the information that we want. And then slowly but surely, we can start to piece that together and get our information back. And I was able to do some of that. I can show you that right here, like this. And that did not work at all because, as we well know, what could possibly go wrong in a live demo?
Mm-hmm.
There we go. So basically what I've been able to come up with is that filter that we saw in Graph X-Ray, which does get me some of that information. I'm able to point to a specific device ID, and then actually that endpoint will return a policy status and just a numeric value. So I had to go and figure out what those were. 2 means succeeded, 1 means conflict, or 6 means conflict, I think, so on and so forth. So still working on this. I hope to have it done by next week. This has been actually quite a fun and albeit challenging exercise. But I wanted to point out both Graph X-Ray is a very useful tool for this, as well as Petri's tool, the IntuneDeviceDetailsGUI. I did take a little bit of inspiration from this tool because if we actually pull up a device here in this tool and create a report, we do get information about the status of an assignment for remediation scripts, for configurations, and for applications. While Petri's code is a lot more advanced than mine, it did help get me to some of the correct endpoints that I needed to get to. So you can see here now that this is populated, if I look at my configurations assignment and go over to the right, you'll see those very things. These have been successfully assigned. These aren't applicable. So this was also a fantastic start. So I just wanted to highlight those two tools real quick for anybody else that's sort of working through things with Graph. These are very, very helpful, and they're eventually going to get me to this solution. So I just wanted to give a little bit of an update on that as well, because that was my homework for this week. So I think that's enough talking from Andrew for the moment. You have some updates for us, Johan?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Let's see if I can share my screen somehow.
Oh, I think you'll be able to figure it out.
Oh yeah, I can hope. This is not it. We're coming back to this one a little bit later because we had a question popping in earlier about that one. But let's see. There was a thread going on in the community regarding next month or next patch Tuesday. So not yesterday's, but month from now. Regarding new Outlook being automatically installed on Windows 10 devices and also activated on Windows 11 devices. And Microsoft released a blog post that at first was, the wording in that blog post, that definitely had opportunity for growth. But long story short, you can prevent this. So Microsoft released a article or a blog on how to block this new installation from happening on devices. And this is something you will have to, for example, this registry key here for Windows 10, Windows 11, you don't really have an option. You have to remove it after the fact. But for Windows 10, you put in this registry key here and then name the block update and you give it a value of this. It is not quite clear exactly how that value should look. So there was some follow-up comments on that, and I haven't received a defined answer to it, but the general consensus seems to be either the value should, not that one, copy, paste, either this, or this, or this. Don't know yet. Because this to me doesn't look like a normal registry value at all. So hopefully it will be updated with a better example. I was hoping to just get a ready-made script that I can just use and push out or something like that. But this is for next February. Updates coming out then. I'm not a big fan. I'm currently with Susan on this for sure, that I don't like when features get enabled without me, opting into them. But that seems to be the trend in the industry now. And, can't win all the wars. Then we had our friend Rudy Ohms. He was blogging about, you didn't mention this post, did you?
No, I don't believe so.
No. There are some challenges right now with TPM Attestation in Windows 11 24 H2. seem to be an issue with particular Dell devices, and Rudy Ohms, as always, put together a remarkably deep dive in how all this belong together and what you can do around it, and things like that. So highly recommend reading up on this one. This is primarily, of course, for Windows Autopilot, but could be other scenarios also that are being affected by this. Yes, that was all I had in terms of news.